2020, and it is Labor Day. So happy Labor Day, everybody. I hope you are enjoying your holiday this year amidst what feels like a lot of craziness around the world. In California, yesterday we had record heat. We had temperatures rising up to 121 degrees in the Woodland Hills area, which is a record, smashes records. It's pretty satanic heat, if you ask me. And people are pretty unnerved by it, especially with the news that there are wildfires and brush fires popping up all over the state. It is wildfire season, so everybody please stay safe out there. And this morning, we'd like to update you a little bit on some of the news that's coming out. Groovy John says, working on a holiday. The news happens every day, rain or shine. So just jumping on this morning to give you this Labor Day update. But thank you for joining, Groovy John, and I hope you're enjoying your holiday. But I wanted to give you guys a little bit of an update this morning. Good morning, Mark from Los Angeles. On some updates about the U.S. Postal Service, some of Trump's recent campaign corruption that's come to light, a little bit of the coronavirus update, and some little news bits that are coming out from around the country this morning. So the big news about U.S. Postmaster General Louis DeJoy yesterday that came out of the New York Times, the Washington Post, is that Louis DeJoy was reportedly pressuring his former employees to donate to the GOP, to the Republican Party, and then would reimburse them. And this was when he was the top executive at New Breed Logistics. He was a top Republican fundraiser from 2003 to 2014. He is now the Trump-appointed U.S. Postmaster General who's been subpoenaed by Congress because of his attempts to slow down the Postal Service ahead of the 2020 election. As we know, we are in the midst of a global pandemic, and people are going to be voting by mail this year in record numbers, and there appears to be a Republican assault on vote-by-mail systems, which, by the way, I'll note, are also paper ballots, which a lot of people are speculating is part of the reason why Republicans are so displeased with the vote-by-mail system, although that's just conjecture. Los Dargie says, good morning from Nepal. Christopher Drago, good morning. Bob, I don't know how to pronounce your name, Bob, but good morning, he says to Hillary, and I'm sure she's having a fantastic morning. Thanks for joining us. So this news that U.S. Postmaster General Louis DeJoy, who we know is a Trump donator. He's been a top Trump fundraiser, a top GOP fundraiser for many years. When he was at the top of his former business, New Breed Logistics, from 2003 to 2014, he was having pressuring his former employees to donate to Republican candidates that he supported and then reimbursing them with large bonuses, according to multiple reports that came out yesterday. These are very, of course, serious allegations, and they should be investigated by the Trump Justice Department. But as we know, the Justice Department is now headed by Bill Barr, who is also a Trump appointee. Let's see, Christopher Peck. If 20,000 people can show up to protest, you can show up to vote. Very good point. Christopher Peck, he was also approved by partisan. I think that would be contested by many people. Trump, Groovy John, interfering with the post office reminds me of tactics by dictator Manuel Noriega. Yes, of course. Interfering with voting systems is a classic sign of authoritarianism, and many Republicans have come out and spoken out against Trump's tactics, including very top Republican figures who are worried that Trump's assault on vote by mail, particularly his announcement, he posed it in the form of a question earlier this year. He asked maybe that we should delay the election. This alarmed a lot of people, including the head of the Federalists, which is a very conservative organization, and spoke out against that kind of rhetoric, which is very fascistic rhetoric. And now with the assault on vote by mail, this new report about Louis DeJoy that came out that shows that he was pressuring his former employees to write checks to the GOP and then reimbursing them. Very, very troubling. So on top of this, we've got other news that's coming out about a little more Trump campaign corruption this morning. Trump reportedly spent $58 million in campaign funds on legal fees and compliance, including for legal fees for his own personal benefit. So he commandeered, according to the New York Times, $58.4 million in campaign donations for his campaign for legal and compliance fees. The reports are that he was using these fees as piggy banks and sending millions of dollars to law firms for his own personal legal battles and protecting his own interests. This is also on top of the contributions that Trump is having funneled into his own pockets by charging his campaign and the RNC for housing, spaces for events and for food catering. And Trump's Mar-a-Lago golf resort has taken up a bunch of fees out of the campaign coffers. As of last year, his businesses had collected nearly $17 million since the outset of his first presidential campaign in 2015. We've got some comments. Del Villarreal Aguirre, Dallas here. Good morning from Dallas. Amy Bollinger, Fox State Media is destroying our country. Their Pravda-style brainwashing of continuous lies got us Trump. They make $2 billion a year promoting their garbage. Loyalty oath to the grand leader is very dangerous to the continuum of USA. I'll note that a free press is the cornerstone of American democracy, and having an entire news network apparatus that's dedicated to propagating the messaging of the President of the United States is very, very harmful to democracy, because we need the fourth estate, as it is called, to provide a check on government. It's really a function of government to have a free press that criticizes and places a check on the executive branch. And that's what we're trying to do here at the AM Report with Haps News. We've got hellos from Italy. Bannon stole the money for the wall, not a peep from Republicans, says Amy Bollinger. Yes. Also, as we're talking about U.S. Postmaster Louis DeJoy, as we are talking about Donald Trump's corruption, as we are talking about Bill Barr's corruption, it's very important to note that Steve Bannon, who was one of Trump's top advisors, was just charged with fraud for stealing money from people who were donating millions of dollars, over $30 million, to help build the border wall, and was using it for his own personal expenses. He's the latest in a long string of Trump supporters and advisors, high-end advisors and campaign staff who were indicted on federal charges. Carmen says, hi, Alex. Arthur Burgess, so the firms that received these fees from Trump be disciplined and struck off. I'm not sure about that, Arthur. I think the firms might not be committing a crime by accepting the funds. It's up to the Trump campaign to not be using campaign donations towards his own personal expenses. So we've got a lot of people joining this morning. Thank you for joining. As we talk about some corruption in the Trump campaign and the way that they are using campaign coffers for personal expenses and legal fees of Mr. Trump. It's also been announced that the campaign is paying Eric Trump, who is Donald Trump's son, his wife, Laura, and Donald Trump Jr.'s girlfriend, Kimberly Guilfoyle, who you'll note appeared at the RNC this year and gave a fairly deranged speech, that they are each being paid $180,000 a year each for their work. What work, we're not exactly sure, but that's coming out of campaign coffers and donations to the Trump administration. Arthur Burgess asks, how much does his golf trips cost? We do know that Trump takes golf trips on the expense of taxpayers, and that he has spent a great deal of time golfing on campaign donations and government taxpayer dollars. So this is, of course, very troubling news. And I'll note that this morning, the coronavirus death toll has exceeded 189,000 in the United States, with 6.29 million cases that are happening in the United States. So by comparison, the world is enjoying, unfortunately, the rest of the world is seeing a decrease in cases, and ours, we have no handle on it whatsoever. It doesn't appear that there's any plan. Trump is, of course, promising a vaccine as his October surprise. So, Amy Bollinger, how many Kurds were killed when Trump abandoned them? They were the main reason ISIS were controlled. A little off topic, Amy, but I'll note that yes, the Kurds were a huge asset to the United States, and Trump's abandonment of them was considered by many an act of genocide because he exposed them to a great deal of risk. The entire Trump family should go to jail, Bruce Heller says. Um, I think Trump has a bumpy road for him when he leaves the White House. I think he's afraid to leave the White House because he knows that he's about to be indicted. And he can't be indicted while sitting U.S. president. But there are a lot of investigations going on into his fraud and corruption. And so that's yet to be seen. So that is yet to be seen. That's all that we've got this morning. I also, before we go, I just want to chime in about this news story that came out over the weekend of boats at a Trump boat parade in Lake Travis in Austin, Texas, sinking, which just really just, I wish everybody whose boat sank at the Trump boat parade well. And thank you guys so much for joining this morning on the AM Report with Alex Mahajer for HAPS News, the network of now. You can join us every weekday morning at 7:30 Pacific, 10:30 Eastern. If you like this journalism and you want to support it, and you're not Dutch Brandisher or Christopher Peck, I'm sorry to disappoint you guys, but if you guys do like this journalism, please visit me at haps.tv/@AlexMahajer and buy me a cup of coffee or maybe a new coffee mug. And we'll see you this week every morning. Thanks for joining. We'll see you soon.